Hello, hello, everyone. Merry Christmas. Almost Happy New Year. Yeah, happy holidays.
So close.
Yay, I know. We're like right in that middle. I've seen all the memes this week of like, this is the time between Christmas and New Year's where you should be doing nothing. Just hanging out, not putting pressure on yourself to succeed. But yeah, we're super excited to be here. We did want to still jump on and do these fun lives because Maggie and I really think that, first of all, this is just a fun conversation for people to learn and for us. And yeah, I think we're going to have a topic today. It's going to be very relatable to the current climate.
Yeah.
The current season. Yes.
For sure. And I think it's also a great, as we're thinking about wanting to set ourselves up for success in the new year and be on really steady footing. It's a topic that can allow you to explore what choosing yourself and your own peace might look like for you in the coming year.
I love that. Yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited as I feel a lot to share. Actually, I feel like we both have a lot to share when it comes to how we're doing things differently this year. Mm-hmm. And I think that just goes to show our personal growth and what's working for us, mm-hmm. which I think is going to help a lot of people see that there's hope, you mm-hmm. know, because I know for me personally, 2 years ago, I was not doing well in this current situation. So so just to get an overview, we are going to discuss today setting boundaries, specifically with family members during the holidays, or when you're in, this kind of close proximity. This usually happens for people once a year around this time. And, I think we're just starting to discuss, you see things on social media, all these things about how, yes, this is an amazing time of year. There's lots of joy and there's lots of, family time and love, especially since we've been apart from our families, some of us, for a long period of time because of COVID. Now we're all getting to be joined together. But that also can be very overwhelming for a lot of people who are going through their own mental health struggles. Some people who are still dealing with sexuality, all of the things that are happening, to be in a space with so many different generations, mindsets, values, systems going on. Some people feel very pushed in a corner or very silenced because they don't want to share a difference of opinion. And I think that Maggie and I can both relate very strongly to both of those, all of those things. Mm-hmm. So Mags, go ahead and start with kind of what's going on with you, or maybe some past, how you felt and where you are now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that for me, I grew up sort of hustling for validation, for acceptance. I have always sought belonging. So there's a difference between acceptance and belonging. Acceptance is and kind of fitting in is sort of counterfeit, in which you have to be somebody different than you are in order to be part of the group. Mm-hmm. Belonging is finding people who bring you into the group as you are. And so I think growing up especially, I did not feel like I fit in. And I was just seeking those spaces where I could get acceptance and was doing whatever I could to get it. And that led me down a road of sort of abandoning myself and doing things that, ultimately led me away from myself. And so I had to unlearn a lot of those behaviors, but I became a people pleaser and sort of a performer and a chameleon. And, and my family, I was the one who was just accommodating and sort of held the peace. And I've been reflecting on this a lot lately. The difference between keeping the peace and keeping your peace is huge. And yeah, totally. As I've gotten older, it's just before it was more comfortable to keep the peace, right? Keeping your peace, not meeting other people's expectations of you, hurts, especially when when you choosing you hurts them because you are no longer who they have grown accustomed to, right? Because you're not giving them exactly what they want. And so it hurts them, not because you're being hurtful, but because it's different and it's change, and change is uncomfortable. And so you have to choose, and it's a hard choice, whether sitting with that discomfort of like having somebody bristle at a boundary you set, they, you know, oh God, I've upset them. Like, do they not like me anymore? Or is this going to ruin the relationship? Or, you know, whatever. And typically what I would do is be like, oh my gosh, I have to fix this.
Yep.
I have to do whatever I need to do to make them happy now, to like smooth this over so it's all better. And that's the old way. The new way is like saying, wow, this feels uncomfortable. I am acknowledging that I've upset someone by this boundary that I've placed, and that the reason I set the boundary in the first place is because I was choosing and honoring myself. I set it with love, not with malintent, and that they will get used to this new line of boundaries that I'm setting, and or they won't. And if they don't, then that will be the end of the relationship. I think that sometimes we think like when we're doing these things, we're ending the relationship. It's like, that's their choice, right? If they don't meet your boundaries, you know, it's your responsibility to enforce them lovingly. If they don't meet your boundaries and they don't adjust to them, then it's their choice to end the relationship.
Right.
Period. It's, you know, it's our responsibility to set the boundary and force the boundary lovingly, but it's their responsibility to meet it or not. And
so I think what a lot of people are having issues with, especially that's why we want to talk about it around the season, because it's family related. Setting that boundary, having someone else meet it or not, when they're just a friend or a coworker or someone that's in your life, is a little bit easier to remove them than someone who you're biologically attached to and you're going to see at family occasions and different things like that. How do you feel the difference is when it comes to a family member in that strategy?
I think it's even more important.
I agree with you. But like, they don't get removed from your life. Let's be honest. We just are allowing them access to us less.
In a different way, right? Yeah. I mean, I think it's certainly harder to navigate because you're also pushing against like the expectation that it doesn't matter how shitty your family is or how crazy or how inconsistent or inconsiderate or abusive, or toxic, that we're just supposed to accept,
love them unconditionally.
And we can love them unconditionally without giving them unconditional access to us. So again, we need to separate. We mentally and socially lump so many of these things together. Setting boundaries is an act of love. Setting and holding boundaries and holding people accountable is an act of love. Otherwise, you are encouraging their behavior.
Right.
You are co-signing it. It's codependency. And so that's not a loving act. Is to allow people to treat you poorly and to treat other people poorly and not hold them accountable. So I think because
how they're treating you is probably how they treat themselves as well, which is just very full circle. Yeah.
And you're likely not the only one, right? It's just, yes, undeniably, it is super hard because we are expected to stand by our families and take whatever they give us. And that's not right. In my opinion, I don't like to speak in like terms of right or wrong, but like that doesn't sit with me anymore. Right? Like why is my family getting a different coding than why can my family treat me like shit when I'm not letting anyone else? What about that makes sense? Why can I, be in a challenging relationship with someone in my family and give them full access to me while I don't do the same thing with someone else? What's the difference here? And I get that there is, we are blood, but
still,
are we not trying to nourish? I mean, the point of boundaries, you guys, is not to like upset people. It is to strengthen a relationship. If you didn't give a shit about the relationship, you wouldn't worry about the boundary.
Right. You just be, it's the concept of the coach and the player. Right. He rides the player really hard because he knows he sees potential in him to be great. but the person that he doesn't ride very hard in during practice is the person he doesn't see potential in and he's given up on.
Right.
Versus if we want to set, you're totally right. I love that. So when you set a boundary with someone, it's because you're actually trying to maintain and create a healthy relationship with that person, versus I don't set boundaries with people that I don't want in my life. I just take them out.
Right.
Like we move on and I don't see them ever again. But creating a boundary is like you said, an act of love to allow both people in the relationship to feel respected and be able to move forward in a way that does not create conflict.
Exactly. I mean, you guys, again, like inner child work here, we're all little kids on the inside.
Yeah.
Kids really like to know what the parameters are. They want to know what's expected, what is accepted, and what isn't. They want to know the clear guidelines of relationship, and we're just setting those up explicitly. I think a lot of times it's like, well, they should know not to treat me like that. It's like, how should they know that?
Right.
If we don't tell people that we're done thinking that other people are mind readers for us.
Yeah.
Not,
totally.
We have to be explicit about what we want. Otherwise, and then when we don't say what we want, we get mad at them. What kind of sense does that make? Right? It's like, did you ever make it clear that the way that they were treating you was not acceptable to you? Right. If not, then you can't, and you allow them to do it. Whose fault is that? Whose responsibility is that? It's yours. Right. And so then there becomes like all these resentments and everything like that. And the relationship is totally destabilized and it's not supportive. And you go into it with all this baggage and it doesn't get better. And it's just like, who wants a relationship like that? So truly, I think the biggest takeaway here is, yes, boundaries are hard to put into place, especially hard with family. But if you value the relationship with your family member,
they're
then
necessary.
boundaries are essential.
Yeah. And they're rewarding. They're as far as I'm concerned, they have become the only answer to strengthening the relationship. Otherwise, I was ready to give up. Like for me. So where are you now? Like, what's this year's dynamic with, you've got a lot going on. You've got a lot of new variables in your life.
With like new family, in-laws, like navigating pregnant, and just all of that. It's hard, but I think especially, I have a partner who really challenges me and challenges my thought process. So like, when I set a boundary this year and it was upsetting to someone, he was like, walk me through that process that you're like going through right now. Like, what does this feel? And I was like, it makes me feel like shit. It makes me feel like I'm a bad girl. And like, I should just do whatever, I should just fix this and like say, okay, screw it. It's not worth it. Right. And he was like, okay, but we set the boundary because this was for us.
Right.
And it's better for us. And, people get used to it over time, but it may take some time. And sure enough, the boundary has been upheld, respected, and honored the whole trip. And it's been a lot better for us. And I think that's where I am, is like really being able to consciously engage with the discomfort of setting the boundary and the pushback from setting it, and still just standing firm in my ground, because before I would have just totally retreated. And so it's nice to be in a place, especially with my family, where I can just say what I need right now. And I think the time that we've spent together has been fuller. We've not been on our phones when we're together, right? Because since we're not spending every single second together, it's like we've actually created and cultivated these like really connected spaces.
Yeah.
And it's been really, and then, we leave in the evening and go, we have our little like secluded area up here.
Neutral space. Yeah.
It's just like, it's been nice to meet, like, right, exactly what I thought was going to happen when I set the boundary happened. It was upsetting. And so it was an invitation for me to engage with that. And that's what I want people to walk away from this knowing from me is like, it's not easy. If it were easy, everybody would set the boundaries, relationships would be thriving across the board. It's how do you engage with the pushback, and how do you still honor?
Because there will be pushback. I mean, that's the thing. Like, expect the pushback, but also like be okay with learning to navigate through the pushback to be able to get the desired result.
Yeah. It's going to be uncomfortable at first. But again, people adjust to you because they love you. They want you in their life too. Like, right? It's just a new dynamic that sometimes takes a little time to get used to. People have to calibrate their expectation of who you are and what you are and their idea about you. And that happens internally, and it can happen really fast, or it may take a long time. But that's the reality of it. And again, centering on this is of love for the relationship, and stick through that first bit of discomfort. It gets so much better.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. So for me, for many, many years growing up, like I had, a very loving family. We did Christmases together. Even when my parents got divorced, like we still did, my parents were still good friends and made sure that, my brother and I were able to still celebrate the holidays together. And as we grew up, like, yeah, I relate, very deeply to your position in the family. I was keeping the peace. I was making sure everyone was happy, making sure everyone got what they needed. Growing up, I didn't really need a lot. I was well taken care of. My parents made sure that we had what we needed. So it felt like a natural way of doing things. Like I was giving back, for all the things they gave me. They had so many presents. They did all of the the Santa stuff and made sure we were believing, and they spent so much time, and we always had good hot meals and all that stuff. It was amazing. And then as I got older, without knowing it, my needs started changing.
Mm-hmm.
And realizing that, oh shoot, like now there's more family members, and we're all living in different states. So now, like, coming together, and I still feel like I'm the one that has to arrange everybody's schedule and do all those things. And I'm like, why am I, like, we're all adults. Why am I still, because that was a position I have in the family. And it wasn't a position that was given to me or appointed to me. It was a position I almost appointed myself, which makes it worse, which is most people. And because then you feel like if I don't do it, nobody will. And so then we, as I'm getting older again, and then, when my husband came into my life 5 years ago, he started joining us for holidays. And all of a sudden I'm feeling like, wow, like now I need time for myself and time for us to be together. And I don't want to deal with people needing me in the morning for a ride to this place, or which car are we taking, or who's making dinner tonight? Like, why is it always everyone looking at me? Like there's like 8 people in this house, like it always falls on the one person. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So it was a lot, and a few years ago when Noel and my husband and I started really getting serious and got engaged and everything, like it started getting worse because I wasn't setting those boundaries the way I felt I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
And this year was literally the first year I've never felt more. I started setting boundaries in September. And I've talked about this on my podcast. Like I did like a whole month where I like didn't even talk to my parents. In a healthy way, just like, hey, you know what, let me just build something real quick and figure out what I'm doing. And then like, I don't feel like I am obligated. And it was not even a bad thing. My parents both understood. And come October, like I'm still seeing now, especially during the holidays, I'm seeing the benefits. Like it's the gift that keeps on giving. Like it's almost like we did it way before the holidays to like get it all out and to like, just like say, okay, like Christine's going to make her decisions. And like this morning I had 2 or 3 calls from, my husband and I are sleeping in like the little outside casita. So we have our own space, which is also very nice. And then, I had 2 calls from my family in the main house, and they were like, where's so-and-so, or what's going on here? Or are you doing? And I'm like, I've got stuff to do today. Like, and I called them and turned on my phone when I was ready to receive their messages. Mm-hmm. And in the past I would have been like, oh no, everybody needs me, run into the house and figure it all out and put out all the fires. And this year I was like, I woke up next to my husband feeling great. I was like, cool, I'm going to take my time. I answered all the questions that needed answering once I got in here, but it like everyone figured out what they needed. A lot of people were like, never mind, we figured it out, because I didn't have to do it.
That.
Right. That if I don't do it, everyone else will just figure it out. And what did they do before I was here? So the biggest lesson I've learned, long story short of all of this, is that I put that expectation on myself that I needed to keep the peace, or I needed to make sure everyone was okay. We've had some issues with my grandfather. He's, getting older, and who's making sure he has his cane and he's walking around and not falling and doing whatever. I'm not always the one to go figure that out, and I don't feel like I always have to. And so making sure that I feel like I'm not appointing myself, the coach of the family. And then at the end of the day, also enjoying the fact that I feel like my mental health and my growth and my work that I've been doing on myself is working, because this is the ultimate real life experience of like the challenge. This is the application of what I've been doing, and it's working. I've never felt better with my family. And I want to say that out loud, because not only is that amazing affirmation for me, but it's for the 2 year, the myself 2 years ago. There is hope. It does get better. And for anyone who felt like me 2 years ago, there is hope. It does get better.
Yeah.
It really does.
You're pinpointing too, right? Our needs evolve and change.
Yes.
Like boundaries are not like forever if they don't need to be, right? And like,
yes,
our boundaries are going to change too, because our needs are going to change. And so we often get into this just like habit of like, this is the role that I play and this is how things are. And when we feel like that, you can feel when it's not working anymore, right?
Totally.
You can feel when something is off. And that's the invitation to say, what is off? What do I need? Do I have needs here that aren't being met? Right? And what are they? And how can I, be consciously aware of how I'm growing and evolving as a person, and how my needs are too, and stepping up and enforcing those needs.
Yeah. So setting the boundaries that I did back in September, that are now I'm reaping the benefits of now during this holiday season. Because I honestly went into it still feeling like, I don't know how this is going to go. We've got family from overseas that I haven't seen for a couple of years. We're all going to be in the same house. Like, we all get along just fine. We're all civil with each other. But the idea is that like, we all have very strong, different personalities. And I think that I was very affected, in the last couple of years by those big personalities. And like you said, my needs have changed, and becoming a wife and having another person. I'm also the only couple in the house right now. My dad is married and my aunt is married, but both of their spouses are with their other families. And so like, I'm the only one with my husband here. And that was something I didn't see coming. Like, I was like, whoa, like this is crazy, because our needs are different than other people's. And I'm still the kid, and I'm the second generation. So it's like, wait a minute, like, am I allowed to express these needs or these boundaries? Like, taking the nice casita, like, is that like maybe another adult should have it, but it's like, no, we're a couple. So it's like being able to really express what we need and like not feel guilty when those aren't met, because that's another thing. It's like, I have some family members that are like, I would just feel guilty, doing that because I feel like it needs to go to like the older person. It's like, I'm not feeling guilty about it. I feel like this is what I need, and everyone's in agreement, and we're good. And then at the end of the day, now the craziest part is I feel like I want to do more. Like I want to do more when I feel like I can participate and feel like I can lend a helping hand, maybe in an expertise or a specialty I have, but I also don't feel like I always have to put out all the fires. And I think that's the biggest difference. Now I'm saying it out loud, is like, there's a difference between putting out fires and wanting to help, because putting out fires feels like an obligation. And wanting to help is literally like, you see someone that needs help setting the table. Great. Yeah, I would be happy to. But it wasn't like, Christine, are you going to set the table? You know what I mean? Like, it's not always expected on me. It's like, oh no, I'd be happy to help. Like, no problem at all. But like, if it gets done without me too, it can.
Right. Yeah, I think you're describing too, like one of the beautiful side effects of setting boundaries is that it is like, it restores your or preserves your resources. So when we are in relationships where boundaries are not set and they need to be, and they are draining us, everything feels like an obligation. Everything feels like a have to. And if
you don't want to do anything.
Exactly. It's like, it's too much. They're asking too much of you. And again, whose responsibility is that? It's yours. I think that's a hard thing about boundaries to swallow, is like, you were even saying like, I took on this role. I willingly took on this
100%.
role. Right?
And at first I was mad. I didn't realize it. At first, when I first started seeing the transition and needing more, I started realizing, well, my gosh, why does everybody come to me? Like, why? Like, I am not the only person that can solve this problem, And so I was mad at everybody else. And we've learned, obviously, Maggie, through all of the coachings and learnings and growth and everything that we've done and that we teach, that most of the time, the thing that you're mad at or the thing that bothers you about another person is the thing that is in yourself. So then I started like putting a mirror to myself and realizing, oh, wait a minute. I've just always been in this role.
Right.
And I've accepted it gladly when I was younger because I was getting so much from everybody. My parents were doing so much. My brother was there and everyone was like cultivating all of this wonderful family joy. And then as I started getting older, I started needing different things. And I kept myself in that position and solidified that. And now it's not serving me anymore.
Yep. So, and as we grow too, right, when we're being like sort of self-sacrificing and doing everything for everyone else, a lot of times we derive meaning from that, and we derive our identity from that. And as we do a lot of healing work and we realize we don't have to hustle for our worth and our value, it's like, well, then why the fuck am I doing this still? Right? It just like, it doesn't feel good. It drains me. And I already know that I'm worthy of these relationships with my needs.
The validation factor, that was huge for me. I agree with you. That was a huge component. That's like, if I remove myself from this position, temporarily, or even just redefine this position, I could still be someone who helps and still be someone who, gives my service, but at the same time on my terms. Am I going to be loved less by my family? Am I going to be, not as appreciated? Because that was a nice feeling. And that was probably why I did it in the first place. And the idea is no, if not at all. If anything, like you said, there's a transition period and everybody learns to start to respect the boundary. And also there's the part B of that, is that now I'm married and I'm getting a lot of love from my husband. And and our relationship this year specifically is feeling so much more cultivated and respected, because I'm not jumping into, I'm not going to sleep at night complaining about all the ways I was taken advantage of today. And then that makes our alone time, soured or whatever, now I come into the room and we're happy, we're excited, everything's great. And we get to celebrate the holiday as it should be, and not just complain about what family member pissed us off today. Like that. That's really not how it should be.
Right. Well, and that's draining too. The aftermath, right? It's not just like the what they did.
Continuing to relive. Oh.
Yeah. It's the resentment that stews and really weighs on us and drains us. And then we can't show up, right? Because we're often not voicing these things. Again, we're complicit in this. And we think that it's like, what other people are taking advantage of us. That's not possible. Other people can't take advantage of you. You allow them to, right? By saying yes, because you're choosing the peace over your peace. And like, that's just so, once you really wrap your arms around that, the people cannot take advantage of you without your co-signing it. Of course, if you are like not aware of this, right? If you don't know, if they're like being deceiving and like, there are some outlying situations here. If you really are not aware, but if you are aware of what's happening, then no one else can take advantage of you. You are co-signing that. Like you are allowing them to, or you're allowing yourself to be complicit in that. So I think the point of that is like, you have so much agency and power in this position to change how you allow people to treat you. And that does not only affect the situation, but it affects how you feel after. And it affects the amount that you have to give. We're always talking about, right? You can't give from an empty cup. When you put boundaries in place, it ensures that your cup doesn't get drained.
That's right.
And so that you can give willingly, because giving reluctantly is not giving. It's not the energy of giving. That is the energy of like obligation, of have to. Again, and when we say things like, I have to do this, think about that difference in that energy. Like, oh, I get to go cook dinner for my family tomorrow versus I have to go cook family dinner for my family tomorrow. That feels different. It feels different when you say it. It feels different in your body. And that's what a boundary does, is it shifts from this obligation of like, I have to be this specific way and things have to be like this, to they get to be how I'm creating them.
Right.
So
you're doing it on your terms. And like we said before, which I've realized this year for myself, like when we start to set the boundary and say you don't feel obligated to do all these things, you end up wanting to do them, but you want to do them on your terms, and your terms ends up being, beneficial for everybody if it's done right. But it's because you're recharged. You're not, like you said, obligated and pouring from an empty cup. You're now feeling full. I slept in this morning, turned my phone off. If anyone needed anything, they know like Christine's sleeping, like let her live. And if they do need something in some emergency, they can knock on the door. It's fine. But at the end of the day, like I would have jumped to any first text message I saw. I don't need to do that anymore. It's not necessary. Everyone's adults and everyone can figure out how to do what they need to do, and I mean, everything that you said just now, I love the whole protecting the peace versus protecting your peace. That's so powerful. And just the reward that you get by setting the boundary is, as hard as it is to do sometimes, depending on your family or the situation. For me, it felt like the only way to maintain these relationships and actually have a relationship be strengthened and continued as a married woman and as this new version of myself.
Yep. Yeah. Again, constantly checking with your new needs. How are they evolving and changing? Yeah. And, I want to honor too in this space. It sounds like our families have been, even if they were a little reluctant at first to accept our new roles and to get used to how we are growing and evolving and what the guidelines are there, that they have been pretty receptive. And their valuing of our relationship is so strong that they want to uphold the boundary, and they're willing to meet the boundary because they want to preserve the relationship. Now, there are going to be some families where that's not the case.
Totally agree.
And that's hard, right? Especially around the holidays. I mean, I know I'm working with a couple of clients currently who had to set a boundary to not go, not even be there. And it's hard. It's a hard change, especially around the holidays, to really shift around tradition and to not be in sort of like a deep familial environment. But we get these ideas in our head, and this is something I've really had to check recently. It's like, we have these ideas about what family is, what we're told family is. And so we believe that our family is this one thing, when in reality, our family is whatever our family is. Not this like universal, like this is family. And it's great to hang out with family. And it feels good to hang out with family during the holidays. And this is what it's supposed to, like, that may not be your reality.
Right.
But we're fed this reality so much that we begin to adopt it as our own belief, even if that's not true.
Sure.
And it's like, even if we can see like, okay, the last 5 times I've hung out with my family, I've left stressed the fuck out, right? I've left like feeling depleted and like I needed another vacation. Like, what is that saying? That's saying that I'm having needs that aren't being met. And that something is out of alignment here. But we trick ourselves into thinking like that's not, no, that was just,
or that's normal. Everybody has problems with their family. It's just, this is the time of the year and we all just have to get through it. It's like,
right.
no, we don't all just have to get through it. It's the same way we talk about burnout. You
Mhm.
should not be a burned out entrepreneur. You don't just have to get through it.
Mhm.
I think the biggest thing is awareness. Like the first thing, like you said, everyone, you feel it when something's off, when your needs are changing. And right now I feel great, but in 2 years, maybe my needs will change based on a different circumstance in my life. And I will need to set a different boundary or maybe remove a boundary that I had set prior. But always be checking in with yourself. The awareness, they say awareness is key. I mean, that really is. That's the key to unlock anything that you need, is to be aware of what's going on around you and also checking in with yourself and saying, do I still need this boundary? Do I need a new boundary? You know, is everyone feeling good and respected? Are we, you know, and adjust accordingly.
Yep, absolutely. And if that doesn't, these can take time. And I think really finding support from people who, like, my partner has done so much work. He does not give a shit what other people think about him.
Yeah.
Other people's like decisions or opinions of him don't sway him in the slightest. And I think it's really helpful for me to be
Around that energy.
in connection with somebody who is like allows me to feel what I feel,
Yeah.
but also question why I'm letting those feelings dictate my relationships in my life. And I think it can be really helpful to be in community with people who are challenging the narrative that everybody has to like you in order for you to be like worthy of love. And that in order for the relationship to work, you have to be self-sacrificing. It is so important to be around other people who are choosing loving boundaries instead of codependency, so that you have a model for what that can look like, and so that you have community to go to if your family doesn't accept your boundaries. And you do have to choose not to go because that's what's best for you. So it's really like we try to make this as unisolating as possible.
Yeah.
Right. So again, when we talk about this a lot in the work that we do, it's not about just like taking away. Like, what beautiful thing are you going to replace that with?
Right.
And so, because if we strip, we're stripping these bad habits away and stripping these unsupportive relationships away. It's like, well, then
what do we have left?
Yeah. It's like, we got to redecorate. We got to fill this space with what we actually desire.
Love that.
And so having supportive community in place with people who are also navigating this challenging journey in setting boundaries with family is really, really important.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And on that note, we hope that you guys have had a wonderful Christmas and that you are, that you have a wonderful New Year's. We're so excited to go into the new year with so much love for this space, so much love for each other, so much love for what we've been able to create already in such a short amount of time. And I think this next year is just going to absolutely allow us to explode with inspiration and creativity and, the joy to finally be able to share strategies that work in a vehicle that is efficient and, results driven. So we're super excited. And that goes for everything. The Academy, this group, our free live trainings, if all you do is just jump on our free live trainings every Monday, like, we're happy to have you here, So we hope that you're getting value from this, and we try to keep it, as relatable to what may be going on in everyone's life so that we can really help you navigate in real time. And I hope that, that helps you have a better idea of how you want to really be showing up for yourself in 2022.
Do the hard things, y'all. The hard things that are hard now make life so much easier in the long run. And it's like, there is nothing more worthy of your investment of effort and resources and time and even money than you are.
Yeah.
right? Your evolution, your growth, and your healing and your success, these are like it's a priority, because once your needs are met and you are thriving, you have so much more to give. Every single relationship that you have benefits from the work that you do on yourself. And that is like, it's facts, right? So we,
It
take
absolutely
the
is.
time, commit this year to yourself, and see how drastically things shift for you and change.
Yeah.
You'll be shocked, I can promise you, because things change so quickly when you choose yourself.
Mhm. Yep. And as we always say, nothing changes if nothing changes.
That's it.
So, yeah.